Say, kids, what time is it?
It's kind of like watching TV, but, in your car.
104.7 The Cave, Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens in the studio. It's Dark Side of the Stream, where we watch movies
documentaries
so you don't have to. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens in the studio. Episode number 69.
Hang on, I'm finishing. Oh, 69.
Yeah, and it was your pick, so you can't write any better than that.
Finishing my breakfast.
He's finishing his whole natural almonds in this 69th episode of Dark Side of the Stream.
Man, we've come a long way.
Jay's pick, 69. 69. Today's subject was the documentary Dig Deeper, the disappearance of Birgit Meyer. Birgit.
Yeah.
When I originally talked about this last week, I was like, Bridget? Nope, it's Birgit. And this is all based on a German missing persons case that led police to basically apprehend a serial killer. It's a crazy story.
Yeah, it's crazy. I had no clue going in. I saw it was a new documentary on Netflix, so I said, let's go for it. Is it me, or is there like one task force in all of Europe? Because they all look the same. All these detectives from Europe.
I think that might be
every
racist.
documentary we watch, dude.
I don't think you could say that
It's
anymore.
the same guy solving every crime. He's like Peter. It's like
all the guys speaking German all sound the same. They all look the
Clouseau
same.
or whatever. It's like there's one guy on the case. No wonder nothing gets solved out there. There's one dude for the entire continent.
It is all based in, most of it is spoken in German. Which
Whether it's in Holland or Germany, these dudes, it's the same detective trying to chase down everybody.
I was kind of surprised that you picked something that was almost like 90% subtitles. But it's funny because I could just imagine you sitting there looking up, and every time like the German words come up, he's like, "Is that you saying the same thing?" Yeah. Over and over again.
The same guy that was trying to solve Jack the Ripper.
Different people, different names, different jobs. But this tells a story about, I guess you would call her kind of a socialite at the same, because I mean,
Hoochie Mama. In my circles, it's Hoochie Mama.
Husband had a lot of money. He was a businessman. He asked for a divorce for whatever reason. You don't really know, but it seemed like it was amicable. And on this evening, she met with her husband to decide to talk about what money she was going to get, everything that was going to go on with her kid, blah, 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 blah. She left, and then she went missing. And from the get-go, and it turns out her brother was a cop in a different town. And we'll get into his involvement and all that stuff. There were I know what you're talking. I know what you're saying. There was a few guys in this documentary that did look very similar.
They look like the same from the Italian one we watched, the same from the Holland one we watched.
Hey man, not everyone can look like Jay Stevens. There's only one, and
they've got that look, man. I don't have. Actually, obviously, I don't have the look of a European detective.
Do you remember that when I was at Red Rocks and there was that really older guy that we took a picture of slinging beer, and I go, dude, that's you.
That's me, man.
15 years from now.
My retirement
There's
plan.
only one other Jay Stevens.
My retirement plan. I'll be pouring beers in Red Rocks.
It's this Dark Side of the Stream. We'll be back in a few on 104.7 The Cave. 104.7 The Cave, Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio. Dark Side of the Stream, episode 69, discussing Dig Deeper, the disappearance of Birgit Meyer on Netflix.
It's yet another tale of police work that kind of was half-assed and shoddy, and then somebody has to take in their own hands. I know.
How many times were we going to do this? How many times were we going to pick a documentary?
The more of these documentaries I watch, the more I realize it's probably easier to get away with killing someone than it is to get caught.
Bro, if you watch these and you know what to do, I mean, as long as if the police are average or less than average, and in this case they were way less than average.
This guy had a whole secret room of devices and toys for stealing people.
We haven't got to that guy yet. Hold on. So, back to the investigation. This girl goes missing. She has a kid. Her mom's freaking out. There was I guess it was called XY or YX, like the German Unsolved Mysteries. They called it Unsolved Mysteries, but it was called
same
YX.
Kind of thing, right?
They had a German guy. It was supposed to be like Robert Stack on there, but they put it on that. It was a big deal in the 80s, and they were hoping that would lead to a lead. It didn't. And it turns out this girl's brother was a cop, and he's looking at the investigation because he's not part of it, and he can't be because it's not his jurisdiction. But he's looking at what's being done and just shaking his head going, you guys suck. You're not doing what you're supposed to do. And immediately they focused in on the husband because, they could claim that he had motive. They were getting a divorce and he had to pay her.
And he was the last one to see her alive. That's usually
That's a
tough hill to climb out of that hole right there,
But then again, they keep coming back to this gardener. that supposedly was hanging out with her too, that worked at this neighbor's house every now and then. He's kind of a weird guy.
Yeah, a little side action.
If you really look at the evidence, it really pointed more towards him than it actually did to the ex-husband. But it doesn't matter because the cops had already made their mind up. The motive says it's going to be the ex-husband, case closed, and that's just the way it goes. Well, after a certain amount of time, I guess the case...
15 years.
No, it was like 7. It was like 6 or 7. The case got turned over to another detective. So I guess, and at this point, there wasn't any evidence based on what they had done, the investigation they had done, the interviews, yada, yada, yada. And he starts going back through it and he looks, and the first thing he says is, this isn't a motive for the husband. He makes millions and millions of dollars. Yeah. He was going to pay her like $500K. Like that's nothing. That was his tax rebate for 1 year.
Jeff Bezos needs that guy's lawyer.
It's nothing. And so like that new detective is like, you guys should have been looking at this gardener. We should have been looking at this gardener. Why in the hell weren't you looking at this gardener?
Let's go look at the gardener.
Let's go look in the gardener. We're going to look at the gardener next. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave. 104.7 The Cave. Mike the Intern. Jay Stevens back in the studio. Dark Side of the Stream today discussing Dig Deeper, the disappearance of Brigitte Meyer. So, the gardener. His name was Kurt Werner Wickman. If you don't know, Kurt Werner Wickman is a German serial killer. And this is how they caught him. It was actually not the murders he was famously known for. It was actually this case that led them to the discovery of that incident. Now,
and like trickle down effect, right?
Yeah. Well, basically,
oh man,
they finally get an investigator in this thing that does his due diligence and is like, you can't rule anything out when you're doing an investigation. You can't just focus on one thing because everything else is going to start to get mudded. So he goes in fresh pair of eyes. He's like, we need to check out this gardener. So they end up getting a warrant. They go to his house. They find a secret room. They're like, oh, crapola. This guy might do some stuff.
Zip ties.
So instead of waiting for him to come home.
Dumbasses.
And tell him, hey, what's with the handcuffs with blood on them? What's with all this stuff, the zip ties? Where these wallets come from? Hey, man, what's with the secret room? They call him and they say, we're at your house. Come home.
Oh, okay. I'll be right there.
So, yeah, Kurt Warner's like, oh, yeah.
Literally, I've told the story before about the Mickey Mouse security team at the Haunted Mansion. I've told that story before. It's the same thing. It's like, wait right here. We'll be right back with the authorities.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Start walking. If you ever get in trouble for anything and anyone ever says, hey, wait right here or meet us here, don't go there or take off running.
Just run. Obviously.
It's like get away from the cops 101. Anyway, so he goes on the lamb and he's gone. He actually calls... I think he calls the brother of the woman, the investigator.
Man. Yeah,
he calls the husband,
with
the ex-husband, and he's on the road. He's calling people from his car phone, living in his car phone, probably did a lot more murders. But then while they're investigating this, they figure out that he is probably responsible for these murders in the woods because he would pose as a person trying to meet people in the woods for a little
sex action. There were some great sex ads.
And he killed at least 4 people in this situation. And then they started kind of digging, and they're like, he more than likely got Brigitte too. So they're after him. Well, come to find out, he ends up getting into a little bit of a fender bender, and that is how they bust him. And when they bust him, they hold him. He knows he's done for. So what does he do? Calls his wife. He says, don't let them touch anything. Everything is supposed to stay in the family. Then he offs himself. Well, the problem with that is in Germany, once you have killed yourself, whether you are convicted or not convicted or they're looking after you, as soon as you die, investigation stops and that's it.
That's like a video game.
Which sucks because it's like these family members, this Brigitte's mom, her ex-husband or daughter,
no recourse, no closure.
Because in German law, you can't investigate someone that's dead.
Well, because they've got that one investigator. He's too busy to investigate dead people.
He's all over the place.
He's all over. He's Italy, Germany, Portugal.
And then they got the second rule, which I guess is if it's in her name, all the property, they can't do anything with the house.
Yep.
So it just sits.
Scot-free.
They know, they think they know, but they don't actually know. And we'll get to how they figured it all out next. Dark Side of the Stream, episode 69 on 104.7 The Cave. Mike the Intern, Jay Stevens back in the studio one more time. Dark Side of the Stream.
Here's where we actually find out about the Dig Deeper.
Dig Deeper.
Title.
So what are they talking about Dig Deeper? Well, after all these years, they finally got permission to go back into where Kurt Warner lived with his then wife.
They wanted the one dude to buy the house. They wanted the husband to buy the house so they could search it.
They literally tried everything they could legally.
Buy it.
German law is crazy. I had no idea that had gone away, but Kurt Warner knew it very well because
Warner?
He did everything.
Damn Super Bowl champion and killing people.
Not Kurt Warner, the St. Louis Ram quarterback. Kurt Werner. Anyway, inevitably, they got back into the house. They went into the garage. They dug deeper and found the body of Brigitte
They had to dig
Meyer.
deeper several times, though. They kept like, it looked suspicious, but they didn't find nothing that looked suspicious. Then
he knew what the hell he was doing.
Hey, props to this dude for going the extra mile on his own dime. He assembled a team on his own time. They all just did it like as a pet project.
The thing that's crazy is like when you go between the detective, her brother, and then the guy that was initially involved in the initial investigation, who's now like working in a garage somewhere, which is where he should be. He's an awful cop. I mean, dude, like all they had to do. If they even suspected Kurt Warner, which they did at the beginning because they did interviews with him, look at his past history. He'd been institutionalized since he was in his teens.
Nobody looked at it.
But the husband did it because he was getting divorced. That's such a thin motive. It's so stupid. Props to the real detectives out there that actually look at everything, and props to you guys for figuring out some of these cases.
Shout out to my boy Matt.
Yeah, dude. I just sometimes I'm like, golly, man, it's crazy. Humans are humans. They make mistakes. But like, as the brother, the detective who was like, the worst possible thing you can do in an investigation is to cut anything off or rule anything out without actually having it ruled out.
Think you've got it solved.
It's the worst thing you can do.
That's Pink Panther stuff, man.
Police in training, if you're listening to Dark Side of the Stream, which I doubt it.
Yeah, no, this should be part of the training manual. Listen to these two clowns talk about our job.
Do not rule out anything. So
unless you're investigating one of us two, then
then rule out everything. It wasn't us. We got an outline.
They're good. Tell us to wait right here, and we'll wait right there.
Yeah, we'll wait right here. We'll meet you at the courthouse.
We'll drive ourselves.
We'll be there. We'll turn ourselves in. So as far as ratings go, the only thing
it was slow.
It was very slow. It was an interesting story, but it could have been squashed into like an hour and a half.
Yeah, it could have been one episode. I feel, man.
It was definitely.
It could have been Unsolved Mysteries.
It could have been an all-solved mystery.
They milked this one, and with subtitles, it's very hard for me to remain conscious.
I would say I would give this probably 2.5.
I think 2.5. 2.5 shady gardeners is
shady gardeners. 2.5 shady gardeners. So make sure and do a background check if you're thinking about hiring a gardener in 2022. Next week for the 70th episode of Dark Side of the Stream is my turn, and we're going to do a documentary on Hulu called Dead Asleep, which tells the story of a man who was accused of killing his roommate, and he claimed that he was sleepwalking. Talk about an excuse.
That's a good alibi.
And next time you get busted for something, Jay, I was sleepwalking. I don't know what happened.
I was sleepwalking.
I sleepwalk all the time. I don't know what happened. You can't control it. Well, we'll find out if he got off on that. Remember, you can stream these online, 1047thecave.com, on our 104.7 The Cave app.
Hey, just a heads up. If this case takes place in Europe, I think you got away with it.
we'll find out.
Without knowing the case, without knowing anything, if it's anywhere out there, he might have got away with it.
Especially if it was in Germany. And you can always watch these live on Facebook. Again, I'm Mike the Intern. This is Jay Stevens reminding you, we watch movies
documentaries
so you don't have to. Dark Side of the Stream on 104.7 The Cave.